Hello and welcome. I used to really like the ending of that intro, and that noise is really starting to grate on me after 18 to 19 episodes.
Oh, I like it. The noise is a bit grating, but no, it's like it's a joke. Like it has a narrative. I like it.
I took a lot of inspiration from the IT crowd. I don't know if you've seen that, but the end of their intro is like this annoying crashing noise.
Yeah. Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Exactly. So thank you for joining me today. I'm here with Dan and Ellen from Tilt. We're going to take a look at how to make development against Kubernetes easier. Welcome. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Good to be here.
Yep, looking forward to talking a bunch about, containers, crashing things, that kind of stuff.
Well, isn't the goal and dream of containers that it makes all of our lives easier? So, developing against Kubernetes should be, by association, easy. Is that correct?
That is
yeah.
correct. It should be. Sorry, Elle, I think I spoke over you there.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to coordinate, right? We should have like a little arrow or something. So developing in Kubernetes should be very easy. Unfortunately, out of the box, it's not. But fortunately, there's people like me and Dan working on tools to make that the case for you. So not all is lost. There's still hope.
Let's start with a basic question then. What is Tilt?
Yeah, so Tilt's like it's a program that runs on your laptop and it watches what you're doing. So like as you're coding, it sees what files you're editing, and it will run workflows like building container images and kubectl applying them and everything you need to do as you're developing. It will run those workflows, and then it will show you what you need to see, which sometimes is logs from the running containers. Sometimes it's build errors from the build. Sometimes it's, hey, your YAML is misconfigured. Sometimes it's this unit test is failing. And to save you from having to play like 20 questions with kubectl to figure out where the problem is as you're developing.
Okay, so Tilt is a tool that allows me to describe my application components, and then it monitors my source code, and then makes magic happen, and my things run on Kubernetes. And then you go a little bit beyond that, and you allow me to see logs. Is that a good summarization of what you said?
Let me interrupt here a little bit. So Dan talked a bunch about basically the headaches that Tilt saves you from, but I think it's also important to note like what it is that it achieves once everything is up and running. And then basically right now, basically by default, let's say vanilla Docker and Kubernetes, as you're developing your application, every time you make a change, you have to kubectl apply, Docker build, Docker push, you have to do a bunch of things. It takes time. And most importantly, in my opinion, it takes cognitive effort. So as a developer, you have to stop coding and then get distracted typing a bunch of commands. So one is that Tilt saves you from that. So everything is automated. You basically save your file, and your application gets updated live on your development cluster. And then you can, test the functionality that you just wrote, or you can go on and keep coding. And the other thing that it does is, so one, it automates it. And the second thing is it makes it very, 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 very fast. So you can have that workflow where every time you make a change, you rebuild an image, you push it to a cluster, the cluster, Kubernetes spins down one version, spins up the other one, that whole thing. But that takes time. And Tilt also allows you to do, we call it a live reload. Other tools call it hot reload. Basically, what this means is you save your file, the file gets synced up to your cluster, everything updates inside the container without killing the container. And the result of all this is basically you save your file, you blink your eyes, the new version's up and running. So you get that, a lot of people mentioned that they miss that instant feedback from when they were working on, I don't know, Ruby on Rails or something like that. And basically, Tilt lets you achieve that, but with containers running on Kubernetes. So it's maximum convenience and zero headache once everything is set up.
Okay, so I guess it's fair to say then that Tilt exists to make people's lives easier developing against Kubernetes. Now, are there any opinions with regards to the toolings that I can work with, or can I use Tilt to develop any application?
Yeah, this is really important to us because like some tools like Bazel or Kubernetes itself are very opinionated, and they're like, we're going to get you to a great place once you adopt everything that we believe. But with Tilt, we're really into Mr. Rogers onboarding, where Mr. Rogers, longtime children's television show hosts, always said, I like you just the way you are. Tilt likes your project just the way it is. However you do YAML generation, whatever you use to build images, however you're running things, we want Tilt to have the right escape hooks so that you can make it fit with your project, whatever you're doing.
Okay, so that sounds great then. I can use Tilt to describe my application, make developing against Kubernetes easier, and you don't mind which tools I'm using. So that sounds pretty awesome so far. I'm impressed. Now, sorry,
one important detail is that most tools that are kind of in the same realm as Tilt, they use YAML as the config file. So the way you declare all your services and you do all your automation and etc. is using YAML. And YAML is a flat config. It's not like a programming language. It's not a full-fledged thing that can do anything you want, basically. It has tons of limitations. And a big advantage of Tilt, and even before I joined Tilt, it's one of the things I was working for another company in this realm, and I was thinking, oh, damn, if only we could do that. And that is the fact that config files for Tilt, they're made in Starlark. And that is basically Python, slightly different. So you have loops, you have variables, you can open files, you can run system commands, you can do anything you want. So it's very easy to adapt whatever you have. And when I say whatever, I mean it, because we have people writing extensions for Tilts that we could not even have dreamed of before. People are automating stuff that like we need to like stop and think to understand what they're doing, because it's something so basically so outlandish for us. And what this means is literally whatever you're doing, if your computer can run it, Tilt can work with it.
Okay, so you're removing YAML from my life, which right away gets a tick. I'm very happy with that. But I have worked with that language before. Sorry, Starlark, right? That's the one. The same one that Bazel uses, is that correct?
Yes.
Or okay. And I have found that quite difficult. So I'm looking forward then today to learning how I can put that behind me then, because I've tried to write Bazel build files before. I love the idea, especially as organizations are adopting mono repositories, of using Bazel as a build tool. Unfortunately, that means you have to run Bazel as a build tool, which I've not really appreciated yet.
Yes.
And a part of that is config. The other part is that I generally never have Java on my machine, so there's a few things there. Tilt is not written in Java, is that right?
Correct. It's Go and TypeScript for the UI.
Nice. I like TypeScript and I definitely like Go, so that we're winning there. As far as Tilt goes, is this something that you feel that all development teams deploying to Kubernetes should be using for their development environments, or are there any caveats around the usage of Tilt?
We say if you use Kubernetes in prod, you need Tilt for dev. I could imagine like maybe you just have one Kubernetes deployment and it's pretty small, that image of like just the one box on the back of a container flatbed. But if you have multiple deployments, if you're really using Kubernetes, you should probably be using Tilt, I think. And if not, do at me, which I think is something that people don't say that much.
All right, perfect. I think my interest is peaked, so I think we should share my screen. We should go through the installation, and we should start to see how Tilt is going to make my life easier. So let me pop up the screen share. There we go. All right, so I'm on the GitHub repository. Is this the best place for me to install it, or should I go to tilt.dev?
Oh, I think if you go to docs.tilt.dev.
Here you have the fancy guide, and you just copy the instructions.
All right, so I can install tilt with a nice little curl command. And I will allow that to paste. And I'm sure this won't take more than a few seconds. I've never had troubles with installations, and that's a complete lie. Every time I try to install something on this stream, I seem to break through, or my internet goes down, or anything. This is looking much better.
Finger crossed.
Excellent. Okay, so what is okay? So step 0 is I install Tilt. Let's assume this is going to complete in the next few seconds. What's my first step if I have an existing project to integrate Tilt into my development workflow?
If you go back to the docs page, there's a tutorial, the first 15 minutes.
Yeah, awesome.
So what it says there is you're going to need the tilt file, and there's a Dockerfile. When Tilt has a tilt file, it's basically in the tilt file you're telling Tilt, these are my services. This is where the Docker files are. This is where the YAMLs are. Run the whole thing. Basically, that's what that's doing.
Okay, so we configure Tilt through a Tilt file, and then these functions, extensions. What do we call these?
Functions.
Those are built. Yeah, those are built-in functions.
All right, so we have functions to represent all of the different tasks that I may have to complete. I guess this goes back to what you were saying about other people building these integration points for languages and tools that necessarily didn't directly come out of Tilt. Okay. Now, I realize I've already made one fatal flaw with my application that I cloned, and that this is not a daemon. It's not a long-running process. So I maybe want to pick something else. Is that correct?
What is it?
It's just a CLI application, which I would never deploy to Kubernetes, and I clearly wasn't thinking straight. So I will quickly grab something else. Let's be brave. So, okay, I guess I need to fill in a few blanks here before I pick a project. Now, say I have this Can I Deploy Today project is a static site, but it needs to be compiled first into those assets and then deployed into a container, and then I could deploy that to Nginx, or to Kubernetes with Nginx. Is that something that would be a good fit for the Tilt workflow?
Let's see. It certainly should be for like the first level. When we get to how you can really make it fast, there might be some interesting questions and caveats.
Can you repeat that description? Because I got a bit lost. I'm trying to think through the mechanics.
Oh yeah, of course, no problem. It's a Next.js website, which means what I need to do is build a container image which runs the next steps, which gives me some HTML, CSS, and JavaScript into a directory, which I would then want to bundle into an Nginx container and have that run in Kubernetes.
Okay. I think I stand with Dan in that. We'll see.
Yeah, okay, sorry, this is my fault. I didn't really think about using the CI application here, and then it just hit me as we were talking, like, that's not going to work. Like, okay. Because I would never deploy a CLI application to Kubernetes. All right, so I can create a tilt file. And I'm assuming, I'm just going to kind of make some assumptions here. Please feel free just to correct me at any point. But I'm assuming the first thing I need to do is build some sort of image for my application.
Now I'm the one who's a bit embarrassed that we don't say this more clearly in the documentation. You should just tilt up, and Tilt will watch your tilt file, so you can like write it interactively.
So here's what you do. You create a tilt file. and just put a tilt file there first and tilt up, and let's see what happens. And then we're going to increment your tilt file as we go.
Interesting. All right. I like it. Okay, so I've got the Tilt UI. Okay, that makes sense. That's pretty cool. I like that.
So no resources found. So you were looking at the Docker build function. So let's try putting one of those in your tilt file, and let's see what happens.
Okay, so I'm assuming this is the tag for the image. So can I deploy? I guess this is the image name. Is this a tag on the end?
Tilt will put those in. So.
Oh, okay. So what's the second parameter then?
That's the directory that you'd like passed to Docker build.
Ah, the context. Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I can just put a dot there?
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
All right. Now, I guess it would make sense if I had a Docker file. So we can do this quickly. Copy /code, worker code, and then run npm install. And if I check my package JSON, export. And so I guess right away what I'm noticing here is that I just use my standard dev tooling to a certain degree to get that container image, and then this is where Tilt kicks in and handles all the complicated orchestration components and getting it onto Kubernetes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we'll call this my deploy step, and I'll copy from zero code. I think it's public. I'll get this wrong the first time, but it'll be okay. Now, should code public copy it to here, which is the standard Nginx directory. Okay, so my first question then would be, would it make sense, because I'm not got 100% confidence in my ability to write a Docker file that quickly. Now, should I be running Docker image build locally till I'm happy with that process? Or is that something that Tilt can do for me when I add the function to build the image and get the errors back?
Exactly. That latter one. Yeah. So if you just try saving, let's see what happens in Tilt.
Okay, so let's go back to our Tilt UI. All right, it did something. Okay, so it says that it skipped my image build because it has nowhere to deploy it.
Yep. Now you need some Kubernetes YAML.
All right. Unfortunately, I can generate that pretty quickly too. So let's have a deployment.yaml. I love this. I don't know who wrote this Kubernetes plugin for VSCode, but it just simplified my life to no end. So. So the first question I have now is that I know how to deploy Nginx. What I don't know how to deploy is my Tilt one. So do I just put that first parameter from my Tilt file, which is can I deploy?
Yep.
And that's it. Okay. Oh, I didn't add the YAML. Okay, so that's first line here. Okay, Tilt file. Is there a VSCode plugin for Tilt?
Not that I know of. If you set it to Python, it will be fairly close. It will give you syntax highlighting, but will complain about undefined functions.
Well, we can just ignore that. So
I think someone wrote an extension to parse tilt files as Starlark. I think someone. Maybe that's only when you look at the source code on GitHub. I don't know, but I think there is something for VS Code. Also, something that we don't recommend anymore, but it's also a possibility. So Tilt has a CLI mode. So it runs things in the terminal, and then you don't use the dashboard on the browser. You can run that CLI on the terminal inside VS Code. So that's something you can do. But we are kind of phasing out the CLI and using more the browser dashboard. So I'm not sure I would recommend that, but it's a possibility.
So just so I can kind of see it, how do I do the tilt in the command line mode? I guess it's tilt
I
up
think
with a
you do
flag.
tilt up, but you'll need to kill the other running tilt server.
Or just use another part just to see it now. So just tilt up -- part and just put like 10.356 or something.
Okay, so is dash legacy the mode we're talking about?
No. Just tilt up -- part and put some random number there. Yep. And now press T.
I quite like it. Okay. So I'm assuming that my web one is still running, which means, yeah. So
now you're doing all the work twice. So ideally, you would choose.
Yeah, we'll stick with the web UI. I don't want to use anything that's going to disappear eventually. So, so what happens here is, okay. Let me scroll back up a little bit. So when we added the Kubernetes, yeah, all right. So that's my broken YAML. I fixed my broken YAML. It started building an image, which actually appears to have worked. And it did not push it, and then it deployed my application. So it could actually be running.
Yeah, what you would do now is add a port forward so that you can then access what's inside the container from your browser and localhost.
And would I do that using my Kubernetes tooling, or is there something tilty?
Oh, no, just Tilt. There's maybe go back to the docs, and then you can just copy and paste there. Where's the port forward?
Yeah.
There we go.
Okay, so I can.
I think that's going to be Nginx. It's the name of the Kubernetes object.
Yeah, that makes sense. So that's automatically just going to rerun that again, I assume, and it's now rebuilding our image. I mean, so right away, it's already taken away 3 of the major pain points I have when I develop against Kubernetes.
And now if you go to Nginx on the sidebar, and if you either opt out or opt into the analytics, now you can see the port forward at the top.
Nginx. So that also means my Dockerfile worked, but didn't really work. I mean, so let me just clarify that then.
Let's focus on the wins. It worked.
So I ran an npm run. I don't know.
Export.
Export. It was export, wasn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm assuming that the public directory was. Oh no, it is the public directory. Oh no, out. ls out. Okay, so it copies it from public, puts it into out. So I just got that wrong. So now I can update my Dockerfile. And again, this is just going to detect that change and work. There we go. So I guess my question now is, this is leveraging just my vanilla Docker setup to the point that I'm going to still get advantage of like all my build cache, although my Dockerfile is not really made for caching right now with that copy doc. But if I optimize my Dockerfile here, it's only going to rebuild from certain stages. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Go ahead then.
Oh, it uses BuildKit if you have it installed by default, so you can use those. And now what you're getting is the automated nature of it and the UI. So if you have more services, you can see them in the sidebar and like flip between them. But we haven't done the live update piece to make it faster at all.
Okay, so in order for us, let's assume that this application is a bit more feature complete than my kind of static site. So say I optimize the Dockerfile so that we don't have to do the npm install every step. I think that's going to make this a lot quicker for what we're doing because the export takes less than a second. And then I want to add a database. Can we kind of go through the process to see multiple services here?
Yeah, you would make another call to Kate's YAML with the YAML for your other service.
Okay, so let's assume let's add Postgres. All right, yeah. So these would these be the same production YAML images that I use, or would there be anything dev specific I have to do or tweak for this?
You might not want as many like instances as your production. What we've seen teams do is like if you're already using Helm or Customize, you like have a different set of values. So it's like the same base template, but you might have just slightly different values, so that you don't have your development instance taking as many resources as your production instance. But otherwise the same, yeah.
Okay, so I need to add my new resource. So I don't like this resource. I would never do Postgres this way. So I'm going to do it because I'm curious, and then maybe we could talk about how I would use Customize to tweak my Nginx deployment, but Helm for my Postgres one. Because I feel like if I were trying to build a production like development environment locally, that's the tools I would be. That's the tools I think I would use. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, Postgres is now spinning up. So does the orange mean it's pending?
It's working, yeah.
Oh
no.
No?
Yeah, orange means there's an alert, and you can see that it's in a back off loop.
Yeah, I didn't provide the password, which you cannot spin it up without telling them the password. So environment, Postgres password, value, password, make it secure, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, it's green. Nice. Okay. Although, does this orange bit mean I broke Nginx? That's this gray bit. Sorry.
Let's. It's because your Docker context for Nginx is dot. It includes the Postgres.yaml, and so there are optional parameters to the Docker build, so you can ignore YAML files and things. So Tilt was, being helpful about something. You didn't actually care that this YAML was in there, but it was.
Will it respect my Docker ignore?
Yep.
I guess. Okay, so I could do a Docker ignore, and I'd say, I can just do star.yaml for now, and not that fast. But I'm assuming that in itself will trigger one rebuild, and then I'll be back to normal. Okay.
Yes. I agree. Let's see if the computer agrees with. We're outvoting it, but.
All right, this is cool. So I tweaked my Dockerfile. I'm using the build cache to avoid that painful npm install, and this is much faster now. Like that was a few seconds, and I had my deployment. Now the question is, did I actually fix it or not? So no.
No? Oops.
So I think my challenge now, I will try one more time, and then we'll just ignore it. But if I do run rm it nginx and just go inside this. I think maybe I got the directory wrong. So if I look at the nginx.conf, take a look at default. Yeah, there we go. So I just mounted it to the wrong path. Easy mistake to make. This goes here. And then I will watch this nice little UI. And it should go green pretty quickly.
These moments when we're waiting, I always like to think of silly computer jokes to tell. Like, you know, I would tell you a UDP joke, but then I might have to tell you again. So
Hey.
there you go.
All right. So my website, my $1 million application here, can I deploy today? Yes, is working. Okay.
Do you wanna make changes to it? Maybe tweak that text and see how long it takes?
Yeah, good idea. So I can open up. I mean, don't steal this source code. This is going to make me millions, but it's. Can I deploy today? Yes, definitely. And then we come back here.
So now we're building an image, and that's why it takes a minute. Now, I have no idea how we're going to use live reload on this setup, but I'm very curious to find out.
Well, we could give it a go, and if it doesn't work, I have ahead of time pulled up some of these example applications, so we can always pull down one of these. But we can go through the motions of how we would do this, and then if it doesn't work, we'll reevaluate. And I'm also keen, if we don't forget, just to stop using YAML for Postgres. I'd really like to see that Helm integration as well.
Great. So if you go to the doc site, and you go down, under enhancements, the first one is faster development with live update.
Okay, so. And
so the key here is it's doing Docker build, but like with live update, you're telling Tilt, like, hey, yeah, you can always still do a Docker build, but there's also this like faster path where I want to sync files from this directory on my laptop to this directory in the running container.
So then what do you think we should suggest here? Should we rebuild the npm export stuff locally and then sync those files to a running container? Or how would you do this?
So I think, part of, like we want Tilt to work with real cases. And so like and developers come up with shortcuts, even though they don't like always work. And so what I do is probably have a live update that just syncs, the PHP file to the right place and kind of skips the export, which could get out of sync. And if it does, you can like click rebuild in the UI, which will have it fall back to the image build. So I think that will like work in the like 90% case.
Okay, so let me make this easier for you both. We don't need to use the export. I think I know. Okay, I think I know what we have to do, but what I'd really love to understand is just a little bit about this live update syntax.
Yeah.
So what this does, if I've understood correctly, is runs a container and is managing the file synchronization into the container and then running an arbitrary command when those files change. So what is the container that it's running? Because I have a multi-layer Dockerfile. Is that why this is a little bit more complicated?
Yes.
Tilt isn't maintaining a separate container. It's just the container like that you're already running.
Okay, right. I got it.
So the where you have the text highlighted there, the line above it, Docker build, it's doing the same as you saw before. It just builds a container. What happens is when the files specified in the first argument to the sync function change, it's going to update those files inside the container. And of course, sometimes you need to run a special command, like if your requirements change, then you need to pip install your requirements in that example. I hardly ever use the run function, just the sync function. So basically just tell me if these files change locally, update those files inside the container. And basically that's it.
Okay, so I think I know what we need to do. I'm sure I'm wrong, but I'll try anyway. So we want to add a new parameter. So it was just this. And I'll put this down here so it kind of matches the example. And I want to think. So this run trigger runs inside the container. This sync. So would that sync mean it expects me to run like an, okay. Sorry, I'm not making any sense right now. Let's take this out for 2 seconds and I'll show you what I mean. Is there comments on a tilt file?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
But they're Python, yeah.
Okay, so we don't need to use the export. If I come into my Docker file, and let's just forget Nginx, and we can run the npm dev server, then what we can do is npm dev, which should give us a more interactive style environment. Let me just check. Yeah. So we can just do this.
I think, and then do you want that as an entry point? Because I think run will run it like while you're building the image.
Good catch. I definitely do not want to run it in the image, so that was a mistake. Yeah, so we want entry point, we want dev, and if I look at our UI, let's see what happens here. Because this is now a long running process, and then you run that container. Give it a second. Oh, what have I broke? Rundown. Well, what's developing without a few errors? Always my errors, of course, never the tool. It's just me. You know, that was saying pebcac, you know, problem exists between keyboard and chair. That's definitely true for me.
Yep.
That's why I use a standing desk, no chair.
All right, we have a dev server. So the first hiccup is this port change, which I can fix. So that port is coming from our ape here. Oh no, so that's a local port. So that's not a container.
Yeah, I think it's coming from the Dockerfile, or no,
this one.
You're right.
Which should reload, and then this shouldn't have changed here. So when that goes green, hopefully I can just reload this page.
I think there may just try it again. I think you may just have caught it in the middle of the port forward.
Yeah, didn't. Oh, there you go.
Perfect.
Okay, so now I think we're in a position where the live update fits the model that you kind of expect.
So let's take pause, because if this works right now, it's going to feel just like magic. So let's go and do some magic now.
All right, so I open a tilt file. I'm going to bring this code back in. Remove this.
And I think you don't want any run, you just want a sync.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll comment that out for now. I just want to test the run trigger thing. I'm a bit curious about it. And then this sync is what the files I expect to change as part of the build. Would that just be dot? Like when anything changes?
I think you yes, that should work.
Or would it be public, which is where I guess.
Yeah, the thing is you need to choose what's going to go where. So you need to know what locally is going to sync to where inside the container. So if you sync dot, it's going to basically put everything in everything that's open on the sidebar there into the container. I think you don't want that.
All right, so if I want to sync the pages directory, which is the one I'm going to be modifying, and then I put that into, so where did I put that? /codes, yep. So /code/pages. Let's pull up our UI, which is now my source of healthiness, I guess. And if this works, I should be able to change my code HTML inside the pages directory, and it will not do any more rebuilds. It will just magically work.
Let's try.
Exactly.
All right, so that reloaded. Let's modify this file again, and let's just revert it. And I got hot reload from JavaScript. All right, that was awesome. That was really cool.
And if you go to the Tilt UI, you can see what it did there.
0.1 second to get that change into the container. That's what that means, right? I've not just made that up.
Yep.
Okay.
0.13, I guess. There's some rounding.
I'll take it. That's okay. All right.
Yeah.
That's impressive. Color me impressed. So, sorry, you go.
And the fun thing is that I think most front-end developers are used to having this live refresh, depending on the framework they use, but not inside Kubernetes. Now you're doing this inside Kubernetes. And sometimes we use a front-end application to show what's going on because it's easier to see. And then people think, oh, I've seen this before in such and such framework. But that's because we're just showing it using a front end because it's more visual. But this works for Go code. This works for whatever backend language you're using. So anything you're putting inside a container in Kubernetes, you can use live reload for.
Very cool. Okay. All right. So this run step piqued my interest. So I'm curious, if I modify my package.json, which is kind of hopefully parallel to what is happening with the Python example, is that if I say trigger this file changes, then run, so that would be /code and npm install?
Yes. And you could even say, you know what, I don't want to do that in the running container. In that case, I want to just go back to doing the fresh Docker build. So run should do what you described in the container, or there's also this fallback on function that lets you change it. So it's the power is in your hands.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry.
Yes,
you should do what you said.
Oh, so automatically, if that command fails, it will fall back and do a rebuild.
Yeah, and so I think for this to work, you need to also have a sync step for package.json, because otherwise it will go, oh, package.json, that's a file that I don't know how to sync. So the idea that we have with live update is that when it doesn't know, like you're describing a fast path, and sometimes you fall off that fast path, if it doesn't know how to sync package.json. So let's try this. Yeah, this should work.
All right, so let's modify package.json, and let's add I guess we could bump up a version here, right? So let's hope this package is changed. Yeah, okay, we've got a few versions there. So I just saved this. Yeah, there we go. Cool. That's a very nice feature. I like that. Let's tackle Postgres. How do I get rid of this Postgres.yaml and how do I consume the Helm chart or Tilt?
So delete that line, and we should actually check perhaps Tilt didn't delete the resource in your cluster, which maybe it should, but that's a different discussion.
Okay, so I think I understand the challenge there. So Postgres is still running in my cluster. Now, the first question that popped into my head there is if I remove that from the file, Tilt reloads that file, that resource no longer exists in its vocabulary. Do you store anything within the Kubernetes side on annotations or labels to identify something as a Tilt orchestrated resource?
Yeah, yes. There's metadata. There's a managed by Tilt annotation, and it turns out that there's a lot of different expectations you could have for these. And so I think if you run Tilt down, it will delete everything. Yeah, and so it turns out lifecycle is hard, and in most of these cases, because it's a development instance, it's kind of just acceptable to say, instead of figuring out a model that the tool understands and you understand, just delete everything and start over, because this is kind of a way to make your development instance cattle as opposed to pets.
All right, let me throw 1.5 questions at you there as a follow-up. So does Tilt care if my Kubernetes cluster is local or remote?
Nope.
So if I have that was a very quick answer, I like it. If Kubernetes cluster is remote, what if 2 developers are using Tilt at the same time against the same cluster? Are there challenges there? Or will it just work?
So I'll maybe put an asterisk. Tilt works with either local or remote, but it has kind of it will special case local clusters to push things in more optimal ways. Like it can skip the push, and it will require you to say which Kubernetes contexts are allowed if it's not a local cluster, so that you can't just start up Tilt against a production cluster. And so if this were a remote cluster, you'd have to kind of say yes, I want to use this context with Tilt. And you'd probably also there's an extension to add namespaces to objects. And so in the Tilt file, you could take all of the objects that you're passing to Kubernetes YAML and you can add your username to that namespace by using a function called local in the Tilt file to run a command. So you'd have a call local who am I, which would return, I don't know, DMcKay or Rawkode or awesome dude or whatever your username is. And then that would actually be a value in the Tilt file that you'd pass in as the namespace.
Okay, got it. That makes sense.
I hear a cat.
Oh, yeah.
Oh yeah, there's a rule. If you have animals, they always have to join us.
Can you full screen? Can you full screen the cat?
Yes, I can. Hold on.
He's our Triger, which is to say he has 3 legs. He's a rescue that we got a year ago, and he is a very curious and bitey guy.
I'm actually surrounded by animals. So I've got 5 chinchillas over here, and I've got my ferret over here, who's free roaming, who sometimes joins the stream just to say hello. And I
Yeah,
got some diggers in the other room. So
and they're just over there chinchilling.
they are just chinchilling, yeah. But I had to turn my desk around. So my desk in this office is at a really weird angle because people just kept asking me about my animals during stand-up all the time. Like, oh, what's that?
Sure.
So, not that I don't love talking about my animals, of course. But
Yeah.
all right. So let's do the Helmy thingy. The Helmy thingy. If I just search for Helm, then
Yeah, let's see if our documentation's up to date.
yeah, I've been impressed with it so far. So I'm just going to copy this. I'm going to copy the bit more complete one. I'm feeling adventurous now. I'm getting the hang of this. So
I'll be back in a second.
yeah, no worries. Oh, no, that's interesting. Okay, so this is actually creating the YAML and then I'm parsing it into a function. Okay. So I
Yeah.
need to specify my char. Now, will that use Helm repositories that I have configured locally, or is there something I need to do special there?
One of the advantages of having a team is that other people, I'm not entirely sure. So let's see. You also can deploy a remote Helm chart, which we talk about, and let's venture forth and see which rocks we crash ourselves into with gusto.
Sorry, I am no stranger to reading documentation. In fact, the original name of this stream was RTFM with Rawkode, but people voted against it on Twitter, so I got rid of it. So let's see. We can load a remote chart, we give it a name, and then we can execute it like so. So let's see if I can work this one out. If I go to the Helm Hub and search for Postgres, let's use, is that the only 4? That's not right. Let's try MongoDB. Give me a chart I've used before, please. All right, let's just pick something at random then. It doesn't have to be a database. Let's go with Bitnami console. So let's okay, so extension Helm remote. I don't think I changed that because I'm obviously loading some sort of extension, giving it a name, and then I have this chart name. So for me, would that be, no, I don't know. So I do not have a local chart. I think I'm in the right bit with this extension.
So I think if you go for more options, see the Helm remote README just a bit below your mouse. There's a link there.
Ah, there we go. There, that makes more sense. Yeah, this example was not great for me, but this one definitely helps. So, all right. So chart name will be, we said console. The repository URL I copied from Helm Hub. I'm going to give that a name of Bitnami. Now I wonder, my console and so the values here is a list. Is that multiple value files or is it key value pairs? Value files, right? Okay. So let's see. We'll have console values.yaml. I'm going to try not to save this file because I'm assuming it'll going to break everything.
I think it will just give a parse error in the.
Oh, really? Okay, let's see that. Blah, 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 blah. What happens if I do that? All right, okay. Cool. I was just curious.
Yeah, no, we want to make it safe for you to do things.
Well, I'm very glad that it didn't just kill the tilt process, and I have the opportunity to just go back and fix it without tilt upping again. So that's good.
We have a config file that is safe for feline typists. So if your cat walks over your computer.
Yes.
That's a developer experience I hadn't really thought of before, but yeah, my ferret loves to type in stuff, random stuff. So. Okay, so I guess I don't really need to override this values file. The default one might be enough. Plus, I don't know where it is. So let's see, GitHub, the NAMI chart. No, okay, we'll make one change. Console values. Okay. Let's change data center name. Okay, Rawkode. So that should pull in my values. I've given my release a name. I can take out my random error. So my question here is, how does Tilt discover these extensions? Is there anything I need to do? Or does this know to load them from a registry or GitHub or what?
Yep, registry on GitHub. Sorry.
We have a Tilt extensions repo, and then when you prepend the load instruction with ext and all of that, then it just finds the extension in the extension repo.
Okay, cool. So I've saved that, and it tried. I bet you I just don't have Helm installed. Which, of course, would be a bit of a challenge. So I'm still getting very much used to this Mac. I got this when I started my new role, and I've been a Linux user since I was like 16. So I'm hoping this works.
Are you able to make the change, to make the jump?
It's been painful. I keep kind of wanting to go back to my Linux machine, but mostly for my window manager and all my shortcuts, which have now been disappeared. The good thing is my terminal hasn't really changed. I'm still using all my Z-Shell plugins, so it's going okay. But it's definitely there's been some friction and tension.
Yep.
Is that the right Helm? I bet you it's not. Have I stole something around? No, it is. Okay, so we have Helm. Oh no, but I haven't changed the file. Tilt doesn't monitor my path for Helm. So.
Yeah, you're correct.
All right, cool. There we go. So it's adding the repository. What have I got over here?
Sorry. Like I said, Cricket is bitey.
It's super fun when Dan does that, like in meetings and stuff. Because you never know. You never know if you said something that makes no sense or if it's just his cat.
And look, to like within 2 parts in 10,000, loading your tilt file took pi seconds.
That is true.
Just at the bottom there, successfully loaded tilt file took 3.141.
Oh yeah.
4 seconds.
Well, I mean, the good news is that I do have a green My Console now. I have a restart here, but I did just deploy a random chart without really tweaking the parameters, so I'm going to let that one slide. All right, so that could have been a production Postgres, or it could have been a development production. Could have been a Postgres deployed via Helm with development environments configured through this path here, but it wasn't. But it did do what it was supposed to do, so that's good. Awesome. Now, one final thing, and then we'll leave it as that. The customized thing. So the one question I still got kind of burning in my head right now. The YAML files I usually have in my repository are customized based so that I can do multiple environments. What is the workflow for that? I'm assuming there's docs.
Yes.
That's still the Helm one.
I think for customize, you go to the API and then you check the customize function there. So way at the bottom. No, not that much bottom. Bottom of the menu. Tilt API reference. There should be a customized function in there somewhere.
Okay, so this is all of the extensions.
If you Control F, it's probably gonna be easier. There you go.
So you just pointed to the customized files, and it just. And I'd have to install customize first. Okay. We don't need to go through that steps. I'm going to trust that it just works. Plus, I don't have any customized files locally. So let's take a look at that extension list, though. That was quite large.
These are the built-in functions. The extensions are above that.
So I see decode JSON and decode YAML. What are the applications or use cases for those kind of functions? I'm not really picturing that right away.
So like, yeah. You might want to like have different options for like which servers am I running, right? Like, and so. An example of that is maybe you want to like have preferences that are saved. And so the tilt file can like read those from disk and then decode them as JSON into like Python objects that you can like dig into. Or some companies that are bigger will actually have like each team they maybe already have tooling per service. And so they have shell scripts that create JSON per service that like have info. And so this is really a way, like when we say Mr. Rogers, Tilt likes your project just the way it is, one of the ways that you like need to interact with it is getting info from existing scripts that generate JSON. And so like it's not kind of useful at this point of trying Tilt where you're getting one thing set up. It's more how do you get it to interact with like bigger existing setups.
Okay, I think I understand that. So there are two other things that kind of pop out here. The Docker Compose function, I'm assuming similar to the Helm, will allow me to load the Docker Compose and spin those containers up in the background as well.
I think Dan would like to go on a bit of a digression here and just tell you that you don't have to use Kubernetes to use Tilt. You can also use Tilt with Docker Compose.
Or just with running like processes. Like you might say, hey, my team, we deploy to Kubernetes, but most of the time we're just running, like go install and go, and run that server. Or we're just running npm dev locally. You still have this issue of like searching between different log streams. And so the Docker Compose stuff and the local resource, like, hey, even if you don't use Kubernetes for dev, you still have problems that Tilt solves. Yeah, thank you, El. It's like you've met me and know what my hobby horses are.
I didn't know you were into horses.
Oh, that's actually a whole different story. But yeah.
All right. Okay, that's just It caught me off guard. I didn't realize that Tilt didn't actually have that dependency on Kubernetes, so that's really cool as well. All right, I'm going to throw one more question at you, and then we'll finish up, and I'll let you get back to your day. This includes syntax. Is there a use case for multiple tilt files, or am I misunderstanding what that would be used for?
Yeah. When you get to, a team that has, maybe 15 different services, and you want to turn them on or off, or, we have orgs that have hundreds of engineers that are using Tilt, then you don't want to just have one file that lists everything. And so you want to break that up. And so that's, in this example that you're seeing, it's kind of contrived. But, how do you make a tool that's where you can play around with it like we have been this hour, but also that can scale to hundreds of engineers, right? And dozens or hundreds of services, right? Like there are different constraints and trade-offs to make there.
Okay, yeah, so I mean, I guess what I've got in my head for a use case there is, each individual teams can be working on their independent service with their own tilt file, but if you ever wanted to orchestrate or see them all working together in a certain fashion, we could choose that include syntax to push them all to the cluster. Okay, got it. All right, let me remove our screen share. So that's been exceptionally useful. I got a much better understanding for how Tilt works. I'm very impressed with. We didn't actually hit too many snags other than my own inability to do stuff and type, but it just seemed to work really well. It definitely was a good developer experience for working against a Kubernetes cluster. And now I know I don't even need the Kubernetes cluster. So I'm going to have to start playing with this a whole lot more. Are there any final thoughts from either of you before we wrap up for today?
I was also surprised we didn't run into snags. Honestly, that was a pleasant surprise for me this morning. I'm in the U.S. for European viewers. This has been great. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, I think like making sure that devs have a good time while they're working is basically what got me into this whole niche, basically. So like for me, I'm really happy when I see someone set something up and they're like, oh, this is super easy to set up, and now it's super easy to use. And now instead of worrying about 100 different things, I can just do my focus on my code and work on my project, and I don't have all those other headaches. And then at that point, they kind of forget that they're using this tool for it. And it's like, I think it's like in the movie industry, they say that when you do good CG, no one notices it's there. And I think Tilt has kind of that objective. When we do a really good job, the developer can just focus on their project, on what they really want to achieve, and we just get out of the way. I think that is the main goal.
A pretty good goal to have, definitely. All right, well, I just want to say thank you to you both for joining me and guiding me through this today. It's been an absolute pleasure, and I really appreciate your time. So thank you very much. To people watching, I hope you've enjoyed learning about Tilt, and you can give it a try. And if you do run into snags, I'm sure Dan and Ellen would be happy to answer questions on Twitter. But I'm sure you won't, because it just works. All right.
Thanks so much.
Thank you. I'll speak to you all soon. Have a nice day.
Cheers. Bye.